Do you remember that iconic scene in The Ring where she literally crawls out from the TV? Take that scene and then amplify it. You're in a theater and all of a sudden all of the monsters from all of the movies that everybody's watching have decided to crawl out from the screens and haunt and terrorize everybody who is in the theater. And that's this game. Hello everybody, welcome back to Board Game Buzz today. My name is Carly and I'm really excited to be here for a review today. The game we're going to be reviewing is Spooktacular from Level 99 Games. Now I have been looking forward to this game forever. I feel like it's been, 8 months? Maybe a year? I don't know. I can't remember when I first heard about this game, but ever since I heard about it, I have just been anxiously waiting for it to release. Everybody who knows me knows that I am, well, if you're new to the channel, then hi, welcome. But I am a very big themer in games. Theme means a lot to me. And so this theme of this game is literally you are the monsters who have crawled out from the screens and are terrorizing, devouring, eating guests at this movie theater. And I just thought that was so much fun. I loved the theme and I just wanted to dive into it. But I know the question that you are all asking right now is, did it live up to the hype? Was it worth the wait? Is this game as good as I was thinking it was going to be? Well, then let's dive into the review and I'll share my thoughts. But really quick, before we do that, if you are new to the channel, hi, welcome to Board Game Buzz. We're so happy to have you here. If you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, follow me on all of my other channels, I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's dive into this review of Spooktacular. All right, so we already kind of touched on the theme, right? Haunted movie theater, and you are playing as the monsters, trying to win points, essentially. And primarily how you're going to be doing that is devouring or scaring the guests at this theater. Something that I really enjoy about this game is how quick and easy it is to set up. Essentially, all you do is you lay out this board. Depending on the player counts, you might actually block off a handful of rooms. If you're playing at the full player count, which I believe is 5, right? 5, you won't block off any rooms and you'll use every single one. The next thing you'll do is you'll just stock all of the rooms with people. It is important to note that I just left this game. This is actually how we kind of left our last game that we played. So I just left it set up. So when you initially set up the game, it might look slightly different. And that really is essentially it, at least for the main setup of the board. Now, the piece de resistance in this game is the literally 20 different characters that you can choose from to be. I really hope that the overhead camera is properly picking this up. Oh, it looks like we might be upside down. Let me switch this around really quick. But yeah, so part of setup is what was, at least individual setup is what's going to happen is people will go around the table selecting the monster that they want to play as. All of these characters are very asymmetric and we'll be playing slightly, it will definitely feel different. The game will feel different, but depending on the monsters that are around the table. It is important to note that there are 3 different levels of difficulty for the monsters. There is easy, intermediate, and then advanced, and that will all show on this other side of the board. So everybody can go through, kind of pick the characters that they want to be. Just for the example, I guess I will pick this Mask of the Outlander. Then you will go ahead and flip this over, and this will become your personal, woo! Sorry. This will become your personal player board. Now, if you take a look at the player board, every single one will have a little section here called Setup. Now, this will walk you through exactly what to do to set up your personal character on the board. So, for example, if I was playing this Mask of the Outlander, I would place the Outlander, which is my little monster character, okay? Place the Outlander in any room. The next thing I will do is devour, which is a term we haven't talked about yet. We'll talk about it in a second. And then I will draw 3 cards. Now, everybody at the beginning of the game has actually a different set of cards. Everybody will have some base game cards and then some cards that are actually unique to your individual character. Grab those cards, collect them, shuffle them up, and then draw the appropriate amount of cards, again, based on what your player board is instructing you to do. Once everybody has done that, you will also determine first, second, third, and so on turn order, and these will be dictated by these little police cars. Now, I just kind of want to mention how fun I think these are, because it's just keeping track of the score, but they're police cars. And so as the game goes on, these police cars are driving around this haunted movie theater where all this craziness and murdering is happening. I just find that so fun from a thematic standpoint. So after everybody has done that, that's essentially set up and you are ready to start playing. So now that we've been kind of talking about these characters, let's chat in regards to my thoughts on them, because I thought this was so well done. The fact that you have so many different characters that you can choose from. Again, it's nothing like Root. It's very, very simple compared to Root, but it kind of gave me similar feelings because Root has a lot of different factions, right, that you can play as, and the way you play and approach the board is very different in Root. You almost feel like you're playing a completely different game than somebody else, and you can both potentially win the game. It's my favorite part about Root. I think that's so fun. This gave me a similar, very stripped down version, okay, very streamlined version, but it gives me similar feelings. I have a handful more thoughts in regards to these, but we'll touch on that in a second. So after everybody has set up, the interesting part about this game is everybody, again, coming back to your personal player board, it will tell you exactly what to do on your turn. So for example, if I was playing the Hell Chef here, on my turn, I will start by serving a dish, playing a card, preparing a dish, moving, and then drawing back to 3 cards. Boom. That's it. Done. Now, when you first get this character, you might not know what that term means, right? Serving a dish, preparing a dish, but they're all always listed on your actual player board. So down here, serving a dish, it says I can return a dish from any room to my board and then perform the serve effect for that dish. So if it was my turn, I could serve a dish. So that means a plate that I placed on a previous turn, I can actually recall it to my board, and then now I can actually do this ability which says place any monster in this room. So that's what serving a dish is. And then playing a card, we have our cards that are in our hand. If you remember, we have our deck of cards that we had shuffled up, or we should have shuffled up, and then drawn 3 at the beginning of our turn. So let's talk a little bit about what these cards do. I mentioned how there were 5 cards. Whoa, excuse me. I mentioned how there were 5 cards that everybody around the table has. So there is a search card, which has you add 3 guests to any room. There is a consume card, which allows you to devour a guest of each color of the particular room that your monster might be in at the time. There is a jump scare, which allows you to move and then play an additional card. There is a mash, which move all monsters in your room and then gain 2 points per player moved. And then there is spook. So there's been a couple of terms that we've talked about that we haven't yet described. So first, let's start with spooking, since we're talking about it right now. So spooking, if, for example, I was in this room, this was my monster, and I played a card that allowed me to spook or activated something that had me spook, what would happen is for every single door of the room that you're currently in, one of the guests that are in there will exit it. I like to thematically think of it as the monster pops up and goes boo and scares everybody, and everybody's terrified and runs away. So every single character will exit through a door if they are able to. Now, for every single meeple that is able to exit to an adjacent room through a door, you will get a point. So for example, this room I exited 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I just got 7 points by spooking this room. Now this particular card lets you spook and then spook again. The reason why you might want to do that is, for example, if I was in, I don't know, one of these rooms that had a lot of people, I could spook, sending everyone throughout a door once, and then I could do it again with the remaining guests that were in that room. There's another term that we talked about earlier, which is called devouring. Can't remember if I described it yet or not. But devouring essentially means if I was in a room with a character, I can devour it, basically meaning eating the character, and then moving it over into my devour zone. Now, if you look at the board, there are quite a bit of different colored guests at the theater tonight. And why that's important is because the moment you devour a set, meaning one meeple of each color, you will actually collect a token. Now there's a bunch of tokens, you actually can't see them, they're off to the side of the board, but you will randomly select one without looking at the back side, and at the end of the game, everybody will flip these over and reveal them and then these will just count towards additional points at the end of the game. So that's why you might be going for a particular color of meeple, is to help complete some sets. So on top of those base cards that you have, everybody, sorry, they're working on our deck right now. Hopefully he stops. But everybody also, every single monster will have a handful of unique cards to them. So for this Hell Chef here, this one allows me to serve a dish, do not return it to your board. And then this one allows me to devour, again, eating a guest, right? And then allows me to prepare a dish. So those are the cards that at least this particular character will kind of be working with in regards to when they are able to play a card. Every single character plays so completely differently. Coming back to this Mask of the Outlander here, when you devour, based on the colors that are in your devour pile, you will be able to do particular actions. And again, going back to turn steps, that's actually the first thing that they can do, is a handful of these actions before playing a card, and then moving, and then drawing back to 3 cards. So based on the monster that you get, you potentially, well, you will be doing something very different than the other people around the table. Now, how the game ends is it's kind of a race. It's a race all the way to 50 points, if you can see here on the board. Once somebody hits that, then everybody, I think there's one more round, so everybody has an even number of turns, and then whoever has the most points wins. Again, you will flip over these cards, or these tickets that you have here, and add those additional points to your final score. But that's essentially what's going to be playing, is you'd be moving around this room, devouring guests, spooking guests, and doing a variety of different things for points. So let's kind of share some of my thoughts in regards to the gameplay. Coming back to your personal player boards here, and all of these personal player boards, I loved how simple this game was to get to the table, because setup is super easy. It literally takes like a minute to set up this game. But on top of that, the teach is super easy too, because you just hand somebody a player board. I mean, if it's their first time playing, you probably don't want to give them an advanced version, especially if they're a newer gamer. But I think if you're an established gamer, I think you could start with an advanced side and you would be totally fine. So you just hand someone a board, flip it over, and then it just walks. You just have them read their board. That's literally all you do. You don't have to sit and go through a half an hour, 45-minute teach of this means this and this means this, and on your turn you can pick 15 different things that you can do. No, it tells you exactly how to set up your character, exactly what you need, and goes exactly through what you're going to be doing every single turn. This is one of those games where you can sit down and just simply start playing. And after that first round goes by, everybody should know exactly what they're doing, and you're just able to begin playing. So this game is so accessible for that reason, and I love it for that reason. I also really love the different characters that you can play, and every single character, it really does feel different. And because they're also asymmetric, I find myself wanting to pull this game off the shelf again, because, okay, I've played with 5 characters so far, but what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? Like, I want to see the different kind of little puzzles that I'm working with in this game, and I love how many different options it comes with. So I think that is honestly just a huge positive to the game, is how asymmetric it is and how easy it is just to pull it out and start playing. Something that I will say though, even though this game is very easy to dive into, it's very straightforward, there have been a handful of times where some hedge cases have presented itself and the rulebook didn't give me the clarity that I wish it would have. So that's something to keep in mind. I always have to mention this on the channel when rulebooks aren't, in my opinion, up to par, especially in this day and age. I just feel like your rulebook needs to be solid. It needs to be fine-tuned. I mean, a bad rule book will make a breaking game. And I wouldn't go so far as to say this is a bad rule book. However, as I opened it and taught myself the game, even while I was reading through the rule book, there was a handful of stuff that didn't quite make sense. I wish they would have added a handful of more pictures so you knew exactly what they were talking about. And then also some answers to some of these hedge cases, because sometimes a card it'll instruct you to do something, but it's just, the clarity isn't quite there, and unfortunately, I couldn't find that in the rulebook. The rulebook itself is very, it's so simple. Literally, you have a page for the page for the components, a little bit of information about the monsters and the theater. This is literally it in regards to the setup, okay? And then this is it for the gameplay. That's really it. And so I just wish there would have been a little bit more fine-tuning with this rulebook. Again, it's not terrible, but it did lead a little bit to some hiccups, and that's something that I always make sure to notify on the channel when the rulebook isn't as strong as I wish it would have been. I will also say that even though this game, you can play it with 2 up to 5, something I really wish that they would have added, because these characters are so asymmetric. Inherently, there are characters who will play better at higher player counts. Now, I haven't played enough to the point that I could be like, okay, this one would play good at a lower player count, this one would be good at a higher player count. But I wish that on these player boards, like in the upper right hand corner, they would have added the suggested player count for this particular monster. Because, for example, if you play this, there's like what is it? It's like the dead ringer or something, some sort of monster in the rulebook that deals with these telephones. And it relies really heavily on having a lot of monsters at the table and kind of moving them around and activating certain things. Well, I decided I really wanted to play that character, not knowing that it relied on having lots of monsters, when I played a 2-player game with Jordan. So it was just me and him, and it still worked, but it wasn't as fun as I wish that I feel like that character could have been, especially if you're playing a full 5-player game with 4 other monsters at the table. I feel like it would have been able to utilize and activate his abilities better. So that's something I really wish they would have added is, okay, you're playing 2 players, here are the monsters we would recommend. 3 players, here you go. 5 players, here you go. So again, I think you would play the game to the point where you would know what characters worked better with other player counts, but I just wish inherently that would have just been stated off the bat. I do think that probably for the most of these monsters, though, I do think having a higher player count would make this a stronger game. So if you just primarily play games at 2 players, I still think it's fun, but I feel like I would feel more pulled to pull this off the shelf if we're sitting down to play a 3, 4, or 5-player game. If you're playing 2-player games, I don't know, I would just have to do my own kind of research into this game, playing it enough time to know the monsters that would work well at 2 players. Something I did want to mention, though, in regards to these monsters are these screen-printed meeples. The components of this game really are really good and fantastic. I'll make sure to throw up some B-roll so you can kind of see some of these characters here, but they're just chonky, heavy-duty, double-sided, screen-printed meeples, and they're just nice and smooth, and they're so good. They're so good, and they look so fun on the board, and I just love the layout of the board as well. It looks so fun on the table. I love how all of the doors are very clearly marked. I never struggled figuring out where a door was and where I could move from, because the board was so it's bright enough that you can see everything that's going on in the room, and I never struggled having to look. I will say, though, for as good as the monsters are, I wish, and I love the theme of these cops going around the outside of the board, but the part where I struggled with in regards to the cops is I always kept forgetting whose cop car was what. So, for example, player 2 here, I'll kind of show you what I mean. If this Hell Chef was player 2, you actually get 2 cop cars. One of them stays on your player board, and then the other one is the actual one that's tracking your points around the outside of the board. And I just kept forgetting that. I just wish that each of these cop cars would have been outlined with a color, and you just had to remember your color. What would have made it even better, I mean, if money wasn't an option, right? I almost wish that there were 5 different player boards, all different color, that were like double layered, and it allowed you to like insert this into your player board. So, okay, I'm the yellow player, I'll get the yellow board, set my little chef in it, and boom, then I have my yellow car, and that way I never forget. I didn't like the 2 thing. And I understand they're cop cars, they can't really be different colors. But like I said, if there was even like an outline, something, it would have helped me more, because I found myself, there was even a handful of times I actually gave Jordan a bunch of points, and I didn't realize until like a couple turns later It's like, oh, I actually think I gave you those points instead of me because I'm first player and you're second player. So I found that a little challenging. I would actually make myself upgrades for this game in regards to that because I kind of found that annoying. But no, other than the cop cars, I think the production of it is great. You even have this awesome bag where you're going to be pulling out the characters. And yes, the bag is actually big enough that a grown man can stick his hand in this bag and pull out the meeples without having to, dump it out or be sloppy about it. It's the perfect size for a bag. So I appreciate that. So kind of wrapping up this video here in regards to my thoughts on Spooktacular, there's so much about the game that I love. I love how accessible it is. I love how easy it is to pull off the table. This game will not overwhelm anyone. It gives you that fun element of having asymmetric abilities, everybody doing different things, but it doesn't give you any overload. Having said that, there's also not a ton of gameplay here, right? So if you're a really heavy gamer, this might feel a little bit bland to you because there's really not a ton of gameplay here. You're going through your steps, and I mean, there is a little bit of strategy to it, but it's not as deep as most games I would prefer. Having said that, because of the fun theme and because of the ease that inherently is just present in this game, just to be able to pull off the shelf, sit down, play. Now that I've gone through the rulebook once, this is one of those games that I probably never actually need to go through the rulebook again because we can just start playing. I know the terms. I know exactly what we need to do. So in regards to my final thoughts in this game is I really, really like this game. The very first time I played it, I wanted so badly to give this game a 9. If a handful of the stuff that I talked about would have been tightened up a little bit better, primarily the rule book, this probably would be a 9 game for me. There is just a handful of stuff that is kind of pulling it down, right? I wish it kind of played better. And again, maybe I just haven't played with the monsters that play better at that lower player count, but I wish it would have inherently played a little bit better at all player counts. I wish the rule book would have been tightened up, and it should have been tightened up a little bit more, had a little bit more testing in regards to that. And inherently, I wish there would be maybe a little bit deeper of a game, but even with all that, I still love this game. Honestly, I in regards to rating, I don't know. I feel like I'm in between an 8 and an 8.5. I think I'm going to come in at an 8 though, but I think with more plays, like if you are looking for an accessible Halloween game, a Halloween themed board game, kind of a spooky board game night, you're able to play with anyone. That's another thing, is it's not scary to the point that like you shouldn't play this with kids. I played this with my kids and we had a blast. Nothing about it is grotesque or really, really scary. It's kind of more of like a lighthearted scary. So I really think lots of different ages can enjoy this game. It's not going to be overwhelming. So I do think that for that reason, this is definitely staying in my collection and deserves a spot in my collection. I don't really have a lot of Halloween themed board games that are as accessible as this one. So I really enjoyed this game. I wish a handful of stuff would have been tightened up, but I still really like Spooktacular. Thank you so much for watching this video today. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, again, I would just love it if you could like, subscribe, do all the good stuff to support. It would mean so much to me. And if you have played this game or if you're wanting to play this game, please let me know your personal thoughts on it in the comments below. Until next time though, I hope you have a great rest of your day and we'll see you later. Now I just want to do like a spooky movie night on top of this. It's just perfect. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'll be terrified that the monsters will crawl out of the screen then.